Be live now.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the March 11, 2021 Governance and Personnel Finance Committee meeting. Joining me this evening on the call, I do believe we have a quorum for the meeting. I do see Mayor Michelle Davis Younger with me. I see Ann Wheeler, who has joined us. And maybe we don't have a quorum. Do I not see anybody else?
You make the quorum, Chair Randall.
I make the quorum, yeah, because there's three of us. Okay, that's three. The women, again, the women make the quorum. I like that actually. So, so we have a quorum. First thing we need to do is have a resolution, and how about this? I'll make a resolution to conduct the meeting electronically. The resolution for the electronic meeting is located in your package. It's the resolution to transmit authority for the Governance and Personnel Committee to conduct an electronic meeting that was signed by the governor on for the March 12, 2020 business meeting. I will make the motion. Do I have a second?
I will second. Ann Wheeler.
Motion is made and seconded by Ms. Wheeler. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion will pass 302 with two of our members not joining us today. The next thing we're going to do is the minutes. I'm assuming the ladies were able to look over the minutes from the last meeting. It really wasn't a whole lot, but are there any changes? Any additions, deletions? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Younger and seconded by Ms. Wheeler. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will also pass 302. Thank you for that. Will you scroll down a little bit more, Clay? I'm looking at our agenda. I'm looking at the agenda online. So keep scrolling down. Keep going. All right. So I think the next thing we have to do today is the update from Ms. Boehnert and Ms. Backman and I guess it's kind of a wrap-up update because the session is now over.
It is.
General Assembly session is now over. We didn't have a whole lot of things that were transportation related. And so I will let you, Ms. Boehnert, take it from here.
Thank you, Chair Randall. I'm just going to cover a couple of big things. One is I want to go over, if you go starting on page 3 of the memo, item number 4, I want to go over a few of the funding things that took place in the budget that provide some opportunities for us here in Northern Virginia. What the General Assembly decided to do with the Senate's leadership is they took the transportation federal COVID relief money from the December federal activity, joined it with some one-time leftover, not allocated state funding, and with the governor's $55 million in general funds for FY22, and put together what they called the 2021 Transportation Funding Initiative. They're all listed in this packet, but there are a few I want to just bring out for us to know that they exist, because again, I think they offer the most opportunities for us in Northern Virginia. One is that the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, DRPT, has been allowed to use $3.6 million in FY 2022 from the Transit Ridership Incentive Program, TRIP, that was created during the 2020 General Assembly session. And they're going to dedicate that $3.6 million to programs focused on congestion reduction and mitigation through supporting long distance commuter routes for urban and rural communities. That is most likely to be bus. And I know a number of our jurisdictions provide what would be described as commuter long distance bus service to your residents. So I'm sure there'll be an application process for those fundings coming from DRPT, and I'm assuming that they'll be communicating regular guidelines on that and schedules once the governor signs the budget. And that's for FY 2022. So, depending on what their schedule is, there might be an application process that starts, as early as this spring or summer. The other items in the packet that I think are really Northern Virginia centric, there's $83.5 million dedicated to expanding VRE service on the Manassas line. And that's pending negotiations with Norfolk Southern. The state is negotiating with them the same as they were negotiating with CSX to look at probably to purchase right of way and rail, but they're really looking to expand VRE service, both more frequent service and also more trains. It also will work in helping them to expand passenger rail service to the west. On the metro related needs, for those of you who are members of the Metro Compact, they're dedicating $32.4 million in FY22 for two very important reasons. One is to fill the state's gap for the Metro Capital Fund, which is state of good repair. They're about $22.4 million short for FY22. And then the remaining funds, which we're hoping will be at least $10 million, will be used to help the local compact members with their FY22 subsidy to Metro. So that was a great thing that came out of the General Assembly on that. For those of you who are working
Wait,
on
Tracy,
Sure.
what is the, wow, that's amazing, first of all. And what is there like stipulations? Is there a time frame by which that needs to be used by?
So because this is probably most of the money coming out of the COVID
The
money,
American Rescue Plan, the new American
the
Rescue
December,
Plan?
right, the December.
Okay,
tranche.
okay.
I think it has to be allocated, I want to say by June 1, 2021, General Assembly wants it allocated by then. Otherwise, it would go to road and bridge maintenance. But because it's for FY 2022, I don't think there'll be a problem. The state has a payment to make to Metro, and then you all have a payment to make to Metro in the new fiscal year. So all the state has to do is send let's hope it's $10 million to NVTC by that time, and then it'll be available. So again, it's for immediate use, Chair Randall.
Okay.
And again,
Do
it'll
they have all the same stipulations on it that the first tranche of COVID money has had on it? I mean, like
no, because this is coming from the December group, so they're assuming they're going to have the money by the
Okay.
time they have to spend it with you all.
Okay.
For those of you who are working on multimodal trails, and I know Chair Randall is in Loudon and others are too, they're dedicating $10 million for new regional multimodal trails. When the Senate first discussed the trails aspect of this, they actually were identifying 8 projects, but in negotiation and conference, those went away. And the Office of Intermodal Planning and something, OIPI, which is an agency underneath VDOT, is to put together a work group to determine how to identify and prioritize trails. So I think this will once again be a competitive grant program. The other piece that I think Northern Virginia will get some benefit out of is they also are dedicating $10 million to establish a fare-free pilot for urban and rural transit systems. Again, bus. This is an idea that was discussed in 2020. They're wanting to, and this is certainly eligible under the federal guidelines, and they want to look at some pilot programs in different types and sizes of local transit systems for free fare to see if that helps with expanding service to folks who really, really need it.
So that probably wouldn't, none of that would probably come to Northern Virginia.
I actually wouldn't say that. I think DRPT is going to develop guidelines around how to compete for grants for this. And it says urban and rural, so we're, few are more urban than us.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, yeah, absolutely.
Our friends at Falls Church got $10 million for a connected transportation pilot they're doing with Virginia Tech. And the information, it's about sensors and traffic timing and gathering data and pushing it out to travelers. But there's also the requirement that they sign a information data sharing agreement with VDOT, which I think will also eventually feed into our RMP3 program. So, out of all the money they were spending, there's a good chunk that's available for us to access or directly directed to Northern Virginia needs and uses. So I thought that was really important to talk to you about. And then I think the other part that, just to share some discussions that we're going to have as part of the transaction update is the General Assembly, through the leadership of the administration and some members, had a fairly extensive discussion this session about a couple of things, and all coming out of the role the transportation sector plays in the greenhouse gas portfolio of the Commonwealth and how that can be changed or affected in a way that it's not contributing so much carbon emissions. And it was, you saw it mostly in discussions around what was described as the electrification of the transportation infrastructure. And that was looking at greater use, greater access to electric vehicles, both personal, commercial, and for schools. There's a rebate program that was created but wasn't funded. Again, the governor could figure out if there's, with the new revenue projections going up, a chance to fund that. There's going to be state emission standards similar to what's in California that will increase the supply of low emission or zero emission vehicles in the Commonwealth at auto dealerships, making them again available more so to citizens. There was lots of discussion in several bills around, electrification of the transportation sector. What does having more electric battery powered vehicles, again, whether personal use or commercial, what does that mean to the transportation grid? How does that impact how much energy has to be generated?
How does it impact our gas money?
Yeah,
How does it impact gas tax?
and there's actually a separate study already going on about that, because you're exactly right. At some point, the tipping point is coming.
Yeah.
There's there's the charging. How do we get more charging stations out there? Because the discussion around if you're going to encourage the citizens and businesses to use more electric battery powered vehicles, price is an issue, availability is an issue, and how do you charge those puppies is also an issue. So you have bills that speak to having those discussions with all the stakeholders. Virginia took a good chunk of its Volkswagen settlement funds and dedicated it to electrification or charging station infrastructure. But it was not going to, and they knew that, was not going to create enough of the charging station that you might actually need. The other discussion that happened, that again, I think we're already seeing this as part of our discussions on the transaction update, are discussions about environmental justice and what that means when you talk about planning, prioritizing funding of all infrastructure, including transportation. So there was a bit of a discussion about that. The governor has had a interagency environmental justice working group for about a year now. There was legislation to make that permanent. Legislation didn't pass for a number of reasons, but he's going to continue that. He released his environmental justice working group report today, and that will continue. So I think those sort of issues are things we're seeing discussed at the state level that mirror what we're discussing here at the NVTA as part of our long range plan. I think there's a certain amount of synergy that can happen between state and regional/local through us, the kind of relationships that this organization has with the administration, we can certainly look to them to share some of the discussions they're having, as well as share with them some of the discussions we're having. Monica, if you want to speak to your outreach to Jennifer DeBrule already about the transit equity study.
Yeah, and thank you, Tracy. So I did contact Jen DeBrule over at DRPT because, as Tracy noted, there's the transit equity study, which I believe a draft report is due by the end of the year. Because we're in the process of updating transaction, which we're asking the authority for approval to issue the contract award this evening at the meeting. We feel that it's important to be involved in this initiative because several of the outputs that we think will be outputs of that study will definitely impact transaction, particularly as this study is looking at transit equity. The authority has directed us to look at equity in our transaction plan and subsequently the 6-year program. So we want to make sure that there are synergies and we're in sync with what our localities are doing and what the Commonwealth is doing as well.
As we look at transit equity, I have to leave since I have a budget meeting tonight.
Sure.
But as we look at transit equity, because we're capital and we're not operating, does that mean? I mean, what does that mean for us? I mean, because that's not the same thing. I mean, because operating is deciding what routes we take. Capital is like buying the buses. How are we? I mean, I want to be involved in this conversation. It's such an important discussion to have. But where's MBTA's role in this since we just
Right.
do capital?
Right. Well, one thing I would note, Chair Randall, and this came up yesterday during the ITS roundtable discussion, access. And we definitely play a role in the access component because we are a funder of new projects, new capital projects, expanded capital projects. And for us, it would give us an opportunity as we update transaction to see where the gaps are in regards to access. You know, do we have complete network? Where are there issues on our transportation network?
That makes sense. Yeah.
You know, things of that nature. So while there's definitely an operational component and we do not control where the new routes would go for the new buses that we fund, we definitely, as a regional planning organization, have the opportunity to identify some of the access issues. Are we equitable in access? Do we see any areas that are deficient compared to other areas with that throughout the region?
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Okay. Michelle, do you have questions? I'm sorry, Mayor Younger, do you have questions?
I wasn't waiting for the proper. No, I don't. I'm good. I'm following along. It all makes sense to me. I love the part with the Manassas part. I saw it when you were talking about that earlier. So that's very good. The VRE expanding.
That is exactly what you should be saying. You love the Manassas part. That's
Well,
exactly.
hey, you know, that's
No, you're totally spot on correct.
being
Chair
mayor,
Wheeler,
that part kind of makes me responsible.
That's the part.
But no, this
That
is
part.
great. This is great. I'm getting it as I go. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity. So no, I'm good.
Absolutely.
Thank
Well,
you.
Mayor, yeah.
Chair Wheeler, do you have questions?
No, I'm actually pretty good. I know that our people are on top of it. Every time they hear grant, I know they're on top of it. I know they're listening and they follow. So it's great to see a lot of different opportunities, and we will certainly try to take advantage of them. So
Great.
but thank you for the report.
No problem. The other theme that I think we're already talking about also is the theme around resiliency, flooding. Is your transportation infrastructure resilient? Can it recover? Can you prevent it from having a bad outcome? If you're prone to flooding, can you prevent it, or can you recover quickly? So resiliency is another theme that will continue to see tied to transportation at the state level. They're doing some reports and studies to identify that. I think where we maybe in Northern Virginia, well, I will say the good thing is they're moving beyond. They seem to be moving beyond thinking of flooding as just a coastal issue, and looking at resiliency and flooding. Again, that's only one aspect of it, as something that's happening, in more urbanized areas. Something, unfortunately, all of us have had to deal with the severity of the storms we've seen lately. So I think that will continue to pop up, and there'll be a discussion about that at the state level, what that means in terms of how they select projects, how they design projects, how they analyze what projects to move forward or what they look like. So we'll continue to see not only just from a planning perspective, but I think we'll also see, look at materials and design guidelines and that sort of thing. On
Okay.
that.
All right. Well, thank you. And Tracy, thank you for this. And thank you for I mean, it seems like you've had one long General Assembly session now right? I mean,
Seems
for a
like 4
long
years,
time.
but it's only been a year and a half, I think.
I know. And there's still one more session this year. So I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you. As it turns out, there was more transportation stuff than we kind of realized at first in this session. So that's cool. Yeah. All right. I actually have to go down to a budget meeting. So Mayor and Chair Wheeler, Mayor Younger, Chair Wheeler, if we don't have anything else, I will say thank you to Tracy and to Monica. Monica, you have anything?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn, so moved.
So 1 second.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone.
Thank you. Stay well.
See you at 7.
See you at 7. Bye-bye.
See you at 7.